All right, guys, we're live. We're live. Sorry, I'm a little bit early today. I'm an hour early than my usual time. Usually I'm live at 4 p.m. Pacific time, but today I'm early because I've got something else I've got to get to with the family. But welcome to the show, you guys. Welcome to the live hour this week. Welcome to the live hour this week. I've got some fun topics for you guys today. The stuff you can get your teeth into, really. Um, but before we get into some of the big topics, you guys, as you come in, just say hello to me. I want to know who's joining me today. And those of you who will join the show and find the live show later. I apologize that I've probably thrown you guys off here because I'm starting an hour early than my usual time. But no matter. When you see the live show, just drop us a comment on some of the stuff we're talking about. Whatever interests you, just drop us a comment. So who's watching today? Say hello to me in the comments. Say hello to me in the comments. I want to make sure that everybody can hear me good because we're gonna be getting real chatty today. We're gonna be talking about some interesting things. Mark just did his year-end review. That's one of the things we'll be talking about today. Mark did an interview with the CBC, and they asked him several questions about his trade policy, about the climate policy. This seeming sort of like a change from a climate conscious regime to allowing a pipeline, essentially. The CBC asked him those questions. So that we'll be getting into some of the things. I'll probably dwell more on the climate policy discussion today and some of the criticisms. It wasn't obviously a direct criticism of the Trudeau-era climate policies from Mark Carney, but at the same time, it was. It kind of was. It kind of was. It kind of was like McCartney was semi taking a dump all over the Trudeau era policies. So, anyways, as you guys come in, just say hello to me in the comments. I want to make sure everybody can hear me good, so that we can have a great conversation today, guys. You guys get in the comments. I want to see who's watching this afternoon. Okay, so the other thing we will talk about today, I obviously told you guys about the reckless predictions that I made last year over, basically predictions of things I expected. Okay, Libis, hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Yeah, so as you come in, you guys just say hello to me. Say hello to me. So, I want to start with the sort of the reckless predictions. Some of you that follow the channel right now, you've probably seen that I made a video reviewing my reckless predictions from the beginning of 2025. So the way the reckless predictions works is that on Abby, hi, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining again today. Yeah, so the way the reckless predictions works is one at the on January 1st every year. I started this last year, but there will be another prediction on January 1st, 2026. But on January 1st, I make a prediction on what I expect to happen in Canadian politics over the next year, right? And last year, I made certain predictions. Among them, I said on January 1st that the consumer carbon tax would be canceled before the end of 2025. Of course, we know now that I was right about that, right? So you guys go watch that video. What I want to see from you guys, and I want you guys to get in the comments, what do you predict? What do you think will happen in 2026? It can be something crazy. I'll tell you something crazy I said last year. I said Alberta would be the 51st state. This was around the time when Donald Trump was talking about making Canada the 51st state. So you can be something crazy like that, something that will never happen in a million years. It's okay. It's okay. So just have fun with it. That's my whole point. So you guys, I'm compiling a community list of predictions. Like somebody put in one on TikTok earlier today. I forgot what he says now. Maybe I can even find it for you guys. So that one on TikTok what was that prediction? Just to kick things off, so you guys know what I'm expecting to see here. Um, so the prediction was Danielle Smith gets arrested for tax issues as she must be taking money selling Alberta by the pound. That was somebody's prediction. As I said, I make no issue with you guys taking whatever positions you want in terms in terms of your reckless predictions, but I'm making a list. Okay, I'm making a list on with you guys' predictions. So as you guys come in, say hello to me. I want to see who's joining me this afternoon. As I said, I apologize because I'm 1 hour early than I usually am. I usually start this show at 4 p.m., but I've got a family engagement to get to. Um, so that's that about the reckless predictions. Mine will come out January 1st. So you guys can obviously get in the comments on that video. I made that video. I put that video out yesterday. You can go watch it and drop your predictions for 2026. So let's move on from that. I want to talk about Mark Carney's year-end interview with the CBC and the fact that he has criticized the approach to climate policy under Justin Trudeau, because a lot of people like Stephen Guilbeault have complained about Mark Carney's direction in terms of like signing this MOU with Alberta, and their feeling is that Mark Carney is departing from sensible climate policy, right? That's the way it has seemed. And Rosemary Barton of the CBC put these questions to him about this dichotomy between the Mark Carney that some people thought they were getting and who was this, climate finance guy, this what's he called now? This climate champion, as against this guy who's open to pipelines. She put that question to Mark Carney, and we'll get into what Mark Carney said there. Libby says, my prediction: the COSMA deal will be cancelled. No more North American alliance. That would be unfortunate. And to be fair, McCartney touched on this in his interview with Rosemary Barton. The interview itself is 24 minutes. I'm not going to go through the entire interview, or at least not in the beginning of this. When we get to that portion, we can always backtrack and talk about some of the things I didn't find as inflammatory or as discussion worthy. I should say we can always backtrack. But let's get started. I want to, and you guys should tell me because as I said, I've had problems with I've had problems with sharing videos in the past with you guys. So I want to make sure that everybody can hear me when I share this. Okay, so let's get going. So I want you to listen up to this particular snippet of the CBC interview, Rosemary Barton interviewing Mark Carney, basically a year-end review, and hear what Mark Carney says about the changes to the climate policies that he has chosen to make right now. So let's get going. I want you guys to tell me if you can hear this because it's gonna start right now.
Stephen Guilbeault resigned from your cabinet, and when he did, he was very critical. What it took to get the deal with Alberta. You had to suspend clean energy regulations. You had to get rid of or not put in place the cap on oil and gas emissions. You had to say we're willing to not use the tanker ban anymore. There are a lot of Canadians that voted for you based on your bona fides on climate change, and then they see you willing to hand all those things over in order to get some sort of energy deal with Alberta. What do you say to them when they say, we're disappointed, this wasn't quite the person we thought he was?
I'm the same person, same values, care about the issue fundamentally, and because I care about the issue fundamentally, I care about what gets done.
Sure.
Not what is put in regulation, not what is said, not what is prohibited, and then nothing happens.
So you didn't think any of those things were going to happen?
The reality is, there is no carbon capture being built in Alberta. There has not been because of these various measures. There isn't large-scale nuclear being built in Alberta. There are no interties between a clean electricity grid in BC and Alberta, which helps breathe that. The effective carbon price, sorry, may I finish?
Yes.
The effective carbon price in Alberta is only $20 a ton. So what we did with Alberta is to change all of that with the MOU.
Well,
change all of that
with all due respect, you said you can have a pipeline if you do the carbon capture storage. You said we're not going to put a cap on oil and gas emissions. You have to do a large industrial emitter, and you already had a federal backstop to use to enforce that. So I'm not really sure what you're getting out of it.
We need the investment now.
Yeah.
What the country, it's not about me, what the country is getting out of it is action. The country is getting investment in clean energy, investment in nuclear, investment in carbon capture. Investment in carbon capture, most people will hear that and of course they think, well, what does that actually mean? It means the equivalent of taking 90% of the cars and trucks off the road in Alberta. These are major investments. Listen, we have too much regulation, not enough action. We're meeting on a day when the results of the previous climate plan are being released, and the fact is we're not going to meet our targets under a climate plan that had all the things in it that you said.
Yeah, but
we need to.
It's hard to see, though.
We need to get going.
Okay, so I just wanna pause there real quick because and you guys heard Mark Carney there. I don't know if you guys heard Mark Carney there say that the results of the climate policy, mostly obviously under Justin Trudeau, have come out with all the regulations that Justin Trudeau had in place, and he then says we were not going to meet our targets under the regime that Justin Trudeau had in place. And I was like, yo, my man just like absolutely shit all over the Trudeau-era policies. These policies that these pro climate ministers and some of these people have said, okay, you know what, these were working, these were doing this and that for the climate, and he just said they were not getting us to the targets. Okay, so that resets the conversation on what is sensible climate policy, especially for now for this country. It very much resets that conversation, because now we got to ask the question: if climate policy, if the idea of being basically anti-development, so to speak, has not worked so far, then perhaps is Mark Carney right to say we should be going in different directions with our climate policy? Yeah, is Mark Carney correct to say that, you know what, we should try? I think that what the Prime Minister is saying is that we should try and on the one, and he says this later in the interview, that his focus obviously is on affordability, it's on investment. He said that just a little bit a little while ago in there. He says that the focus is on getting investments. We need the investment. When Rosemary Barton obviously asked him what he gets or what the country gets out of his decisions and regarding the climate, he talks about investments. In the end, he talks about affordability and some of those and how the moves that he's making will eventually tie into affordability. So I thought that was an interesting review of the Trudeau-era policies, because I mean the Trudeau-era policies are often touted as, okay, it was focused on climate, almost sounded like it was worth it for all the things that this country was sacrificing. With it was almost put in the context of, okay, we're sacrificing all of this, but look at all the good things we're doing on the climate. And Mark Carney is saying here that, well, we're not going to hit those targets with the Trudeau-era policies. Let's continue with what the interview actually goes on to say here, because it does get very interesting.
It's hard to understand how removing things, policies, that are not going to get us to the targets and potentially building another pipeline will get us there.
Rosemary, what gets us there is doing things. And saying that we won't do things and then nothing happening does not progress. That we've had that. It hasn't worked. This government is is 100% focused on doing things that are going to reduce emissions.
Yeah.
We are going to grow clean energy in this country at a scale never seen before. We put in tax credits in the last budget should be worth more than $40 billion over the course of the budget, just from the investment that comes from that. And we're not stopping there. We're not just putting tax credits. Sorry, I'm going to go on about this, but we're not just putting tax credits and saying, well, if we put the tax credits in, let them come. No, we spend time with the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, with Quebec, with Ontario, with Alberta, with British Columbia, to get this moving, because we recognize, and I think all the premiers do recognize, that we need to get moving.
And I need to keep moving, if that's okay. Stephen Guilbeault also said that he really believed that this deal was in part because of your concerns around the rise of separatism in Alberta. Is that fair to say?
I think it's incredibly important, and it's part of the responsibility of the Prime Minister, whatever Prime Minister, to work with provinces, to work with Indigenous peoples, to work with Labour, to work with all Canadians for common objectives. It is important to work with Canada. Look, I recognize that part of the reason why things haven't been moving in Alberta and other parts of the country is there has been a sense of being dictated to by Ottawa. Now, Daniel Smith and I, Premier Smith and I, don't agree about everything, but we do agree that we want to move forward. So we sat down, our team sat down, we worked this out over several months. We have a plan to move forward.
But does that not destabilize the rest of the country? Now you have British Columbia upset that they weren't consulted in advance and not in favor of what you've put on the table, and you have a real, I think, frustration in Quebec as well with where you are with your climate targets at a time when Quebec is heading towards a provincial election and the Parti Québécois is promising another referendum.
One piece of a broader puzzle. The MOU is one piece of a broader puzzle. I will point out the Prime Minister, the Premier of Quebec, as did the Premier of Ontario, as did the Premier of Nova Scotia, as did the Premier of Saskatchewan, as did the Premier of Manitoba, I can go on, all supported the MOU, all supported the MOU.
Okay, let's pause there for a quick sec. So this is an interesting pattern of behavior that is okay. I should get to your comment here, Libis. Libis says this emphasized what is wrong with politics and bureaucracy. Some policies look good on paper, but they're not actionable. They are just red tapes sometimes, and they impede progress. Okay, and the rest of you guys can get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about this. Specifically, the portion where Mark Carney, the Prime Minister Mark Carney, has just said that with the Trudeau-era climate policies in place, we were not going to hit our climate targets. There's apparently a report on that coming soon. It's not out yet. But there's apparently a report on that coming soon. And that puts you in a position where you're essentially reviewing these restrictions, these regulations, as the Prime Minister put it, that we've had in place all these years, thinking that we are sacrificing all this economic growth, all these potential benefits on the one hand for, I mean, if it means that much to you, and for some of us it does mean that much, we're sacrificing this kind of economic development for climate, for progressive climate policy, to drop down our emissions. Well, Mark Carney is saying, well, we were actually not hitting that target, which is why he has decided, in the interest of getting results, to switch up the tactics a little bit, to focus on incentivizing provinces like Alberta with okay, you can get a pipeline if you do this, and this, that will fundamentally drop our emissions. Now, from the perspective of some of Mark Carney's plans being actionable, I don't know if some of you have read a little bit about carbon capture. I don't know that it works as good as maybe the Prime Minister might hope. Now, the Prime Minister does emphasize later on in this interview that there's more to this MOU than a pipeline, and this is something that we came to the conclusion of in this community whenever the MOU came out. We discussed that in this community, and we all sort of came to the conclusion that, you know what, yes, there's a pipeline in there, but there seems to be an over fixation on the pipeline aspect of it, especially by the environmental activists people. There were environmental interest groups. People did not seem to notice or pay attention to the fact that, well, the MOU furthers things like nuclear energy. It furthers interties with the clean energy grid of BC. Furthers things like carbon capture, carbon pricing as well in Alberta. People were so focused on the fact that there was that there is a possibility of a pipeline, not even that there is an actual pipeline project in place, right? Which is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Abby says, Mark Carney is definitely not a far left social justice liberal. Okay, so I want to talk about that. And obviously, you see that Mark Carney seems to be focused on, and and I think this is how this country should run, which is one where the prime minister should be a facilitator for provinces. It should not be an impediment for provinces and their development. The prime minister should be a facilitator. And I think, in my opinion, it would seem that that is the way this prime minister is choosing to approach his governance. He's choosing to work with the provinces on whatever their goals are to try and facilitate their development as needed. You can see he has had separate agreements with Alberta. He signed a separate MOU sort of thing with Ontario this week. Stuff like that. It would seem that this is how this prime minister is choosing to govern in a bit more, I dare say, a bit more of a pragmatic style. Anyways, let me see what else there was in that segment. I'll play that for you right now.
The MOU creates the possibility of many things: investment in nuclear, investment in interties, investment in data centers, investment in carbon capture, yes, and a potential pipeline. Now we start those discussions with British Columbia. British Columbia, with whom we are producing the world's first, zero carbon copper mine. That we're creating a northwest corridor in British Columbia of clean energy, a conservation area the size of Greece, and unlocking the world's lowest carbon LNG in the same time, in partnership with BC. These link together, or they have the potential to link together, but these are decisions that we'll take as governments, as different parties.
Still ahead. Do you like this job?
Do I like this job?
Okay, so obviously the prime minister then ties into some of the other stuff that I said there. So that's the first part of what I wanted to discuss with you guys today. That's the first part of what I wanted to discuss with you guys today. So it would seem that Mark Carney is kind of pointing out the fact that the Trudeau-era climate policies were not necessarily working. Okay, which is kind of interesting to me. It is very interesting to me, and obviously with Rosemary Barton trying to kind of quiz the prime minister on Stephen Guilbeault and stuff like that, the prime minister then points to some of the other sort of pieces in terms of the nature strategy and the climate strategy, the emerging climate strategy that his team is trying to put in place. And yeah, so that I found that very interesting. Next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So and you guys can get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about this. Would you rather see the Trudeau-era climate policies kept? These, the emissions cap, the no new pipelines, if you like. Would you like to see the less development in the oil and gas at this particular time? What would you like to see? And or if you're a person with interest in more climate action right now, I'd be interested in seeing to see what moves, what strategies you would like to see the government adopt. So yeah, I want to move on to talk about the NDP. And I bring up the NDP because the NDP did a review of why they lost the last election. And I want you guys to get in the comments before we go through sort of the findings about why the NDP felt they lost the last election. There's a video for that actually. The NDP did the whole thing, and the CBC covered it. And I want to review the findings of that particular the research that they did into understanding why they lost. Why do you guys think the NDP lost? Get in the comments. Why do you think the NDP lost so many seats in the last election? Now, there are a few schools of thought there, right? Some people say the NDP lost because so many people wanted to keep Pierre Poilievre out of office. So, especially the people on the left hated Pierre Poilievre so much that they decided that they would rather sacrifice what the NDP stands for and vote for the Liberal Party just to keep Pierre Poilievre out of office. That is one school of thought, right? Now, um, the NDP seems to be of the opinion that one of the big reasons they lost was because the question on the ballot box was who was strong enough to who was best to handle Donald Trump, and they did not kind of have a seat at that table, and they felt that was that. Okay, Abby says people want economic growth rather than kumbaya. I don't know if that's a fair characterization of what the NDP stands for. To be fair, um, they do focus on a lot of like social policy, a lot of like things like your dental care, things like your pharma care. They do focus a lot on those, and maybe in that last election there was a little bit more of a focus on economics that the NDP could not necessarily counter. I guess that makes sense. But I don't think it's a fair characterization to say that the NDP is focused is just kumbaya. Now, granted, the NDP has kind of departed from their pro worker roots a little bit, and I've said this several times. I would like to see the NDP return to that. I don't think that them focusing on social messaging, social justice type messaging, will serve them in the next election. That's just a fact, right? I think that given what they have in front of them, given the competition that they have, I would like to see the NDP move center to the center as well. I think that is how they call back more votes. Because as I said last week, the the topic that is most top of mind for Canadians right now is actually jobs and economics and the economy, right? So if the NDP goes and starts focusing again on all these social justice issues, they might find themselves having a conversation that nobody wants to have, right? And that will not serve them well. Anyways, Abby says the NDP is all about social policy. These policies are all good, but people who pay for it are workers. The tax is astronomical. They need some economic brain. Okay. Um, I guess in some sense, it's like, they're not. Yes, we pay a lot of taxes, and there is a balance to be had between social programs and just how much of there is a balance, I should say, between there's a balance in terms of the value of social programs and people's spending power, essentially, because as you rightly say, these social programs are being funded by tax dollars, right? And so you do have to weigh, okay, what is the value of the taxes I'm paying versus the value of these social programs, and that is a balance that Mark Carney obviously had to strike in his budget, in the budget. Yeah. So Abby says the NDP lacks balance, and I think that is a balance that is something they need to find. Come whoever their next leader is. The NDP, I don't think in this particular time has the luxury of focusing on on just social policy. I don't think they have the luxury of that. I think they need to return to their pro worker bona fides. That's what I would say about that. So the NDP basically said that, you know, because of the question that was top of mind last election for people, the question that was top of mind for people was basically a binary decision on who was best to confront Donald Trump, right? Some of you might remember Chrystia Freeland ran a whole campaign where she said a 4-year-old or somebody asked her to run so that she could fight Donald Trump, and I found that very hilarious at the time. um, but the NDP seems to feel like they ran a solid campaign and they were just unlucky in terms of the question on the ballot. Uh, I don't know. I don't know that they're learning that the NDP has learned. And I put a video out about this. I don't think that right now the NDP is a serious party. I don't think they are a serious party. And it remains to be seen who they elect. I will see, I guess, in March who they elect as their new leader. Um, as I said, for me, seeing what is on the table, they'll be going up against a obviously centrist politician in Mark Carney, and kind of like in Pierre Poilievre, you have a bit more of like a center right politician. That's where I would put, honestly. Speaking of Poilievre, I don't think Poilievre is as far right as a lot of people like to make him look. You know, people like to people like to make Pierre Poilievre seem like he's like Trump, and he isn't. It really isn't. It's, anyways, I wanted I that I mean that's what there's not much to say there about the NDP. I was gonna play the video, but I kind of already talked through the what came of the NDP investigation into why they failed in the last election. I don't think that they learned the lesson. So they seem to think, oh, it's because the question was something. Well, how they don't know what the question is going to be in the next election, and I would say the chances are the question will be on economics by the next election still, because McCartney as prime minister is facing a challenge right now, which is like, yo, he has to turn around this economy in a time, and people are not going to give him an unlimited amount of time to achieve on the economics, right? So chances are our next election will be a referendum on whether McCartney has delivered on what he said he would economically in terms of affordability and stuff like that, and growing this economy. Chances are that the next election will be a referendum on that. And so if the NDP goes and they decide that what they want to discuss is maybe a lack of climate policy, well, that happens to be like the fourth. I think that's like the fourth most important topic to people right now. They are missing out on the top three things that are important to Canadians right now. So that could put them in a very bad position. Now, I want to move on to talk about Pierre Poilievre, because, and I'll make that the last little like structured topic we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about Pierre Poilievre. Now, as the opposition leader, there is this impression of Pierre Poilievre that I don't know if it's fair to have this impression of Pierre Poilievre, but people say that Pierre Poilievre is negative. People say Pierre Poilievre is negative. People say he's always okay. Abby says, of course they didn't learn their lesson. NDP feels like the school that will say there shouldn't be prize giving day because all children pass the exam. Oh, so you want to get into social justice topics? Okay, so I'm guessing, Abby, that you don't believe in participation trophies. You don't believe that when 10 kids or whatever run a race, all 10 kids should get a medal, so that you can keep their confidence up for them to attack life from there. I'm guessing that's not your perspective, is it? You don't believe in free and fair competition. Everybody for themselves. Anyways, so Abby says, God no. God no. Oh. Anyways, I guess you're very much for free and fair competition. I mean, from your comments in the past, I feel like you are very conservative, very much in favor of like competition and those kinds of things, and some of the policies that conservatives talk about. Anyways, I wanna talk about Pierre Poilievre. Okay. Abby says first, second, third. Improvement matters, not that you tried. Hisses. Okay. Okay. So where was I? So I think there's a lot of unfair criticism of Pierre Poilievre for being negative in the news. People say, oh, the reason why they don't like Pierre Poilievre is because he's always negative. And in my mind, I was like, okay, as against what? He's the opposition leader. And so that is my question to you guys today. That is a question I have for you guys today. How would you rather see? What would you rather see from Pierre Poilievre? What would you rather see from Pierre Poilievre? How exactly is he supposed to do his job as the opposition leader if he's not quote unquote negative, if he's not calling out the things that he sees that the government is not delivering on? Because I think that in certain respects we should be how to say, we should be grateful, I think. And I'll explain this. Don't jump down my throat before I'm done. Okay? I think we should be grateful for an opposition leader like Pierre Poilievre. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because of Pierre Poilievre, I will say, because of Pierre Poilievre, we Pierre Poilievre was really probably the one that paved the way for Mark Carney to come into politics. And I think even Mark Carney will say this. I've said this a few times. Mark Carney has said before that he looked at the person that was going to be prime minister and said he couldn't allow that. But also, we look at some of the policies that Mark Carney is adopting today. This move, this focus, this the way it looks like right now, this focus on economic development, the understanding that affordability is very important to people right now. You look at all that, and I think we could agree that without a person like Pierre Poilievre to shine a light on some of these issues, we might still have a prime minister that tells you everything is going to be okay, gives you a GST holiday over Christmas, that kind of thing. We might still have a prime minister that just doesn't get it. But now we have a prime minister that, at the very least, on the cosmetics of it, seems to understand that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. And Libby says PP isn't negative. The liberals are just brilliant. They turned his tactics against him. As far as I'm concerned, PP is needed. We got a change in this country. We got economic change because of Pierre Poilievre. And Libby says PP championed the issue of affordability. And that is my point. Pierre Poilievre is very good at holding up a mirror. And maybe that is unfortunately maybe one of the reasons he will never be prime minister, in my opinion. Pierre Poilievre is very good at being a foil. He's very good at being a villain. He's too good at being a villain, to be fair. I don't know that is. I think when people look for their prime minister, they want somebody that seems a little bit more just different to what Pierre Poilievre represents. Pierre Poilievre is almost like that anti-hero that you need in order to elevate the superhero. If you guys are anime fans, Um, think about like if you've watched. Here's a popular one. Naruto is a popular one, right? Naruto is an anime a lot of people have probably watched, and you'll realize that obviously Sasuke was very important for the development of Naruto. Naruto would never have become the Hokage. And pardon me for those of you who are not anime fans, um, but Naruto would never become the Hokage he did if he wasn't constantly trying to to match his arch enemy, stroke friend. Um, and in fact, you'll see what for if you still even within that same anime, you'll see that the role that Sasuke's brother Itachi did for the development of Sasuke, right? He put these terrible memories in his head that made him kind of like hate him forever and try and kill him and get kind of like stronger for that sense. And so bringing it back to politics, Pierre Poilievre is just that guy that I think is quietly, not quietly, I shouldn't say quietly, but he is elevating what a person like Mark Carney has to deliver on. He is elevating what Mark Carney has to deliver on because now there he I mean think about it. Right now the topic that is top of mind for Canadians is affordability and the economy. And how long has Pierre Poilievre been talking about affordability and the economy? Only years, years, years. Now, whether whether you know whether you agree with his solutions or not, or whether the funny thing is, a lot of people will say, "Oh, they don't agree." Um, Libby says, um, PP championed the issue of affordability, and he did. Libby says PP is not a villain; he's an instrument of change. I agree with that. I agree with that. It is depressing, though. I gotta say, it is depressing that he does point to a lot of the negatives all the time, and it can feel like just a barrage of negatives all the damn time. But he is instrumental. He is very, very instrumental, and he is needed, and he has been instrumental in elevating what is expected of the prime minister's office. I mean, just because of his constant barrage, you kind of saw you guys you guys are so quiet today. It's just Abby and Libby talking to me. You guys please get in the comments. I can rant for an hour. Anyways, yeah, get in the comments, talk to me, guys. Um, do you think that Pierre Poilievre is too negative? Do you think Pierre Poilievre is a villain that is best suited to be an anti-hero as against being the PM, the man? You know, you guys get in the comment. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts on this matter. So let me just remove this from the screen so I can talk to you guys. Just there. Yeah. So I think that Pierre Poilievre has obviously defined what the current Carney government is focusing on without even being the prime minister. Maple Boy says yes, it is. I can confirm that. Yeah. So welcome to the show, Maple Boy. By the way, welcome to the show. For those of you who are just joining, I apologize for starting early today. I do have a family engagement at 4, and the show is still supposed to be. I was supposed to normally I have the show at 4 p.m. But today I had to come in an hour early and just try and talk to you guys. But sorry for those of you who missed the show. Go back, watch the show from the start, drop your comments. I read every single comment. Okay? I read every single comments, even those guys that come at me for no reason. I read every single one. Um so I think that Pierre Poilievre is necessary, but he is a victim of his own success, so to speak. You know, he has been so good at lifting the mirror up to and reflecting the problems facing everyday Canadians. I mean, I never thought like 2 years ago that we would have a prime minister a prime minister that is very much a climate champion, looking at the economy, looking at affordability for Canadians, and going, yeah, we gotta do both. If not, actually, focus a bit more on economics. That is wild to me. I couldn't have seen that 2 years ago, right? But that is credit that Pierre Poilievre will never get from people. People will say, and he's an easy target because of his personalities and is an attack guy, right? And he hasn't kind of displayed the I don't know if I'll call it saying temperament makes it okay. Maple Boy says I don't agree. Yeah, and I want to give me more, Maple Boy. Why? What don't you agree with? What don't you agree with? You don't agree with the fact that Pierre Poilievre is necessary and he has been useful in shaping the focus of the current government. I think he has been. I think he's been because I mean, if you look at the last election, you know, just look at the last election. And what was the top issue in the last election apart from the whole who can fight Trump discussion? The top issue, the issue everybody was concerned about was economics. And whether you like it or not, fine, Pierre Poilievre's credentials did not stack up to Mark Carney in that election. But whether you like it or not, that was Pierre Poilievre that brought that into the limelight for people. Libis, I didn't forget about your comment there. Libis says the Prime Minister and his office will try to pretty up everything to show they are effective. That is not PP's job. He is doing his job. And so, and that is, as I say, the unfortunate thing for Pierre Poilievre. I don't even know that people, or at this point where we are in this country, I don't know that people are as against Pierre Poilievre's core policies as it would seem. Because, I mean, if they were just against the policies, you would by now you would have people should be more up in arms. I mean, obviously you have the climate activists protesting Mark Carney's climate policy or emerging climate policy. You have those people already protesting Mark Carney's position on these things. But you should, if it was just the policy and you've seen Mark Carney take a raft of Pierre Poilievre's policies, so I mean, I couldn't have imagined even a year ago that the liberals will be talking about mandatory minimums themselves, and they are. Maple Boy says the fact is Pierre repeats the same thing every day. He's just trying to normalize the narrative. Well, Pierre does repeat the same thing every day. And it, as I said, the reason why you repeat the same thing every day is for emphasis, is so that it kind of strikes through, so that at some point people can connect the dots. That is kind of like making an ad or making an announcement. Sometimes people don't catch it the first time. Sometimes it catches people at a particular moment in their life and they're like, yo, that guy said that. And as I said, it has been effective. I mean, you see now that the narrative is essentially focused on things that Pierre Poilievre has been talking about for years to this point, right? So I feel like if people were that against Pierre Poilievre's policies, there should be more people up in arms against some of the things Mark Carney is doing right now. So clearly, it seems like because of Pierre Poilievre's depiction, maybe his personality, maybe it's the way it's perceived. It seems. Okay, so Libby says he repeats the same thing so people take it serious. Yeah, well, that's essentially what I was saying. He also repeats it to emphasize that it has not been fixed. That is a crucial point, Libby's. That is a good thing to point to. If the affordability issue had been solved all these years, Pierre Poilievre will have nothing to talk about. That is the truth. I mean, and you see that because, like, obviously, the Pierre Poilievre was saying a lot about the carbon tax. Now, whether you believe the carbon tax was doing something or not, he got the liberals. The liberals then kind of like said, well, the consumer carbon tax is actually accounts for very little of our emissions reduction. Why the frig was it there anyways? Why was it there in the first place if it doesn't actually like do too much in terms of reducing our emissions? Why was it there in the first place and making life more expensive for people? Why? And the fact that the carbon tax became the first thing that Mark Carney let go of is an acknowledgement of the fact that in some regard Pierre Poilievre was right. Right now we have the liberals focusing more on industrial carbon pricing. Anyways, Maple Boy says, if the but nothing to connect. Okay, um, so you're saying that people don't necessarily connect to what he says. I beg to differ. I beg to differ because just with the fact that it Pierre Poilievre is okay. Okay, so Maple Boy says, I want to get your second comment there before I talk. Maple Boy says Pierre's job role is not just to up to oppose; it is to pass legislation. It is to pass legislation that will help Canadians. Okay, okay, yeah, no, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But to be fair, it is I don't think it's a fair characterization to say Pierre's job is to pass legislation that helps Canadians. When if you're an MP that is in the ruling party in government, yes, it makes sense to have that expectation that he has to pass legislation. But I'll give you an example. Even in this fall session of Parliament, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have put forward several bills that never got passed. Right? So to have that expectation that Pierre Poilievre should pass bills, I don't think that's a fair characterization to be honest, because you in for the Conservatives to be able to pass a bill, they need to convince the Liberals that they have the right agenda on something that on something, right? Like crime, for example, where obviously we saw this fall, where like okay, so we saw this fall where like the Conservatives tabled something about jail not bail, the Jail Not Bail Act, in terms of like keeping repeat offenders off the streets, and the Liberals sort of like took a few pieces out of the Jail Not Bail Act and then kind of like retabled it with their own label on it. That's typically how these things go, right? Or at least that's the way they've been going the last few months. Let me get back to your comments. Libby says people are not against Pierre Poilievre's policies; they just don't like his personality, and that is sort of the reaction, the realization I'm coming to with Pierre Poilievre. It would seem that it is just maybe it's his voice. I don't even know. Maybe it's the way his voice sounds like it comes from his. Maybe it's just that nasal voice that he has. Maybe that's just what is just very, very annoying to people. I don't know. I don't know. Because it does not, I kid you not. The last poll I saw in Quebec on pipelines, it seems that even in Quebec, the pipelines are looked upon favorably. Now, the people in government in Quebec obviously will say they're against pipelines, and they are. But in terms of polling, even in Quebec, you find that a lot of Canadians are for pipelines right now. It's pretty interesting when you think about it, right? So you know, people like to say that people like to say that the reason why they probably don't like Poilievre is because of his policies and stuff. Clearly, it isn't, right? Maple Boy says like package take their no package tax. He keep. Oh, okay. So you're saying like the food packaging tax, and Pierre Poilievre does keep repeating things like the food packaging tax and stuff like that, and tax on food, and he keeps repeating it. And you're saying that there is no tax on food packaging. Okay, and that is a fair point, Maple Boy. That is a fair point. Pierre Poilievre does lean into some of the gamesmanship of politics. Sometimes he will, and I've been vocal in criticizing Pierre Poilievre for doing this on this channel, where he posts certain things that are not true. Sometimes it's clear to me that he clearly didn't read what he posted, right? That happens. And I can agree with that, Maple Boy. I can agree with that. That he sometimes plays so much into the gamesmanship that he he will say things that will turn people against him in some of the falsehoods there. Lebi says some of the policy and legislation being passed are PP's opinion that some of the policy and legislation being passed are PP opinion that the liberal. So, okay, I'm not really sure what you're saying there, Libby's. Fox Club, welcome to the show. Oh, I apologize again. I started the show at 3 p.m. today because I have a family engagement at around 4. So I won't be staying too long after 4 to talk to you guys today. But as I round up the show, but by all means, you guys can go back and watch the show from the start. And I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your thoughts on some of the things we've talked about today. Okay, so Maple Boy says my point is you need to question more what Pierre Poilievre says, and you should question what every politician says. I think you should question Pierre Poilievre, but at the same time, when Mark Carney says, "Oh, carbon capture is going to take so this number of cars off the streets," question how effective the technology of carbon capture is, for example. So question everything. Question what every politician tells you. Don't just take what they say at face value. Don't apply that just to Pierre Poilievre because you don't like him. Apply that to even the politician that you like. So I agree with you, Maple Boy. Yeah, question Pierre Poilievre, but question Mark Carney as well. Anyways, so I wanna kind of tie this up for you guys. What have we spoken about today? Today, I started talking about like my reckless predictions from January 1st, 2025. And Merry Christmas, Fox Club. Merry Christmas. Fox Club says Merry Christmas to everyone. And he hopes that you all have amazing holidays. We wish you the very best, Fox Club. You are one of our legendary commenters on this channel, and we're very, very happy to have you on the show. So I kind of in the beginning of the show I talked about my reckless predictions for Canada and Canadian politics in 2025, and I was the first, and nobody was saying this at the time. I said that the carbon tax will be gone, the consumer carbon tax obviously will be gone before the end of 2025. That was one of my reckless predictions for 2025. So if you want to see more on my reckless predictions for 2025, go to the video. I put a video out yesterday with reviewing my reckless predictions from the beginning of 2025. So go watch that and see which one you can critique which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong. Obviously, I've only told you the one I got right here so that Anyways, the one I got wrong, I did say that Alberta would be the 51st state before the end of 2025. Obviously, that was a bit tongue in cheek, but what I want from you guys when you watch, and you can put it in the chat now, or you can put it in. You can go watch that video and put it in the comments there. I want to know what your predictions for 2025 for 2026 are, because I'm compiling a list of a community list of predictions. I will review this by the end of next year. We'll review how many we got right. And what was it? I've already gotten two predictions today. Let me read you the one here. So on TikTok, I got this person says their prediction is that Danielle Smith will get arrested for tax issues, as she must be making money selling Alberta by the pound. That was somebody's comment, apparently. Someone's prediction for next year. So I know somebody here also dropped a prediction earlier. I just need to find it for you guys. It's a little bit far away. Yeah, I don't have it. But yeah. Libby's predicted that the Kuzma deal will be cancelled and there will be no more North American alliance. So there have been predictions like that. So I think it'll be fun. You guys get in the comments with your predictions for what you expect from Canada in 2026. And the other thing I'll do, I'll obviously review my predictions for the United States as well. And by January 1st, you'll have my video on my predictions for 2026. Oh, Lebis, thank you for joining the show today. Fox Club says, I would love for us and our American friends to find some common grounds. Yes, we would. But bye bye to you as well, Abby. Yes, I would love for us and our American friends to find some common grounds, but there is a certain orange fella that doesn't seem to want that to happen, and he has been telling Americans that they've never had it so good. It's so good. No, forget about the prices. Forget about the evidence that your eyes are showing you. You've never had it so good. Anyways, I want to roll the credits and get out of here. We've got, thank you, Abby, for your comments today. Thank you, Libby's, for your comments today. Folks Club. Sorry. I feel like you were aiming for 4 p.m. and then you kind of saw I came in a little bit early. Apologies, and for you guys that joined the show later. I do have an engagement for later. That's why I do have something with the family to get to later. That's why I started early today. Thank you, Maple Boy, legend, absolutely legendary figure, Maple Boy. Thank you for your contributions to the comments today. Yeah, so obviously a quiet show today because obviously I started the show at a slightly different time, but we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming next week, 4 p.m. Pacific time every Sunday. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. You guys take care. Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas. Hopefully you guys have been nice. If you've been naughty, I guess you're not getting anything from Santa, just like Jamil Giovanni of the Conservatives. I'll see you guys later. Bye.